Okay, so good morning everyone. My name is Fiona and I'm really grateful that I've been asked to speak today on behalf of Christian Aid. I'm going to do an introduction to myself because I'm sure that not everyone knows who I am. And then I'm going to introduce the work of Christian Aid. I'll talk about Christian Aid in general, but also specifically about the Christmas appeal, which is called Deliver Hope. So that's going to be the theme of my talk today, Deliver Hope. I've been part of Weymouth Baptist Church for 14 years, which makes me feel quite old. But I really know that a lot of people won't know who I am because my church attendance in the last 6 months has been shocking. And I'm going to blame it all on my new job, which has been working for Christian Aid as a regional coordinator in Somerset. So I've kind of defected to Somerset. So often on a Sunday morning, I'll be speaking at someone else's church somewhere in the middle of Somerset. My job is to give presentations about the work of Christian Aid's project overseas and also about our campaigns work. Christian Aid works with people of all faiths and of none. So I've had some really interesting experiences of speaking in different churches over the last 6 months. And it's been a great privilege to get an insight into how different church can be. Sometimes people ask me to talk on a theme. So I recently did a Churches Together event in Glastonbury where they wanted me to talk about climate change and the impact that is happening on poor communities. The next week I was at Wells Cathedral hosting a film showing about how tax dodging is affecting poor communities. So it's really nice and varied. But what I most commonly get asked to do is to come and speak in the Sunday morning slot at a church, and they say, we usually allow about 8 minutes for our sermon. Is that okay? So actually I'm really chuffed to be here today and to know that I've got a little bit longer. Okay, so can we have the next slide, please? Last week it was amazing. I did manage to come to church here, and Peter was speaking about having the courage to follow your calling. And for me, I've always had a passion for the wider world and for humanitarian work. So it wasn't that difficult for me to follow that line of work. But actually, getting up in front of different church congregations has been a real challenge, and I've really, really had to rely on God in the last 6 months. So that's been a great challenge and a great reward, really, to know that God is there for me and for all of us when we step out. I'll say the quote that will appear shortly on the screen. So this is a quote that I heard recently on Radio 4, which really has become my motto in the last 6 months. Yes, just in time. So if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. And what that means to me is that God doesn't intend for us to have a safe and a comfortable life. He wants us to be constantly living on the edge and constantly ready to do the work that he has set for us. So I love that quote. That's really inspired me lately. In my work in Somerset, I've got to work with a lot of people who volunteer for Christian Aid. Often they know a lot more about the organisation than me, so it's been really humbling. I've worked with a chap called Peter, who is recently retired, and he spent his life working as a vet in Somerset. And somewhere along the way, he was telling me that he lost his faith. He then went on a trip, just a holiday really, to Jerusalem, and something there reawakened his curiosity. And when he got back to Somerset, he picked up his Bible for the first time in 30 years. And what he said to me was this: I was transformed. It seemed to me that on every page there was a call to action. And I agree. So that was what motivated me to work for Christian Aid. The fact that the Bible is both comforting and uncomfortable, and that it calls us to do something, to take action. Okay, if we can have the next slide. Okay, so I wanted to just give a bit of background about Christian Aid. I know that a lot of people already know about Christian Aid, and thank you for those who already support us. But it's really interesting, especially in the light of the celebrations of the World War recently, to have a look at the history. So Christian Aid began life in 1945. It came about as a response that the churches of the UK wanted to make to the devastation that they saw across Europe at the end of the Second World War. So the roots of Christian Aid are in the churches. That is where we began, and that's where we remain today. So in the light of all the destruction that people were seeing, the British Council of Churches wanted to have a practical aid agency that could help to build a better world. They dreamt of a world where everyone has equal rights and can live in peace with their neighbour. The churches linked their dream to the biblical idea of loving your neighbour as yourself. And that is what Christian Aid has been doing ever since. This does, of course, raise the question, who is my neighbour? And as with many questions, the best answer is always to tell a story. So there's a story about a man called Douglas Lister, who was a Church of Scotland minister working as a chaplain in Germany during the war. Back in the UK, and soon after VE Day, Christian Aid, through the generous giving of UK churches, made some grants to help the people and churches of countries who'd been British allies during the war. But Douglas Lister wasn't happy. He had been moved by the suffering of the German people when he was out there as a chaplain. And he was determined to do something to help them as well. Now, initially, the officials refused, saying, "These people are our enemies." But Douglas Lister, inspired by his faith and following Jesus' call to love thy enemy, broke down their prejudices, and he made it possible for Christian Aid to send money to Germany as well. And for the past 70 years, Christian Aid has sought to live up to the example of the Good Samaritan, to identify our neighbour in need and to take action. So we're currently working in over 55 countries, and we're supported by 41 church denominations. Christian Aid provides opportunities for churches to respond to the Bible in 3 ways. So giving, acting, and praying. Individuals within churches pray for us, give their time and their money, and they also act, taking part in campaigns which tackle the root causes of poverty. So I've got another story on this. Early on, when I hadn't been working very long for Christian Aid, I went along to a Christian Aid fundraising lunch in Yeovil, which is where I'm based. And everyone was really nice and friendly. This is a good thing about doing my job. I don't often get heckles and that sort of thing, which I have had in other jobs before. But I sat down next to this chap at the Christian Aid lunch, and he said to me, "Yeah, the only problem with Christian Aid is that it's too political. I think the work that you do overseas is amazing, but why do you have to get caught up in campaigning on tax and climate change and asking people to write to their MPs? I think you'd be better off just steering clear of all that stuff." So it challenged me. You know, I was new in my job. I didn't have the answer to him. So I went back to my Bible and I looked at the life of Jesus. And I just saw time and time again that Jesus challenged the authorities of his day. He did it with dignity and with respect, but he challenged them. And I'm really proud that Christian Aid is following that example. Another key thing about the way Christian Aid works is that we work in partnership. So we believe that local people in their communities know best about their own problems, and they know best about possible solutions. So we work through partner agencies that are already there. So Peter said in his introduction about the Philippines. So I was receiving some emails yesterday saying that we need to be ready to respond, because we know that a year on from Typhoon Haiyan, the next typhoon is coming, and we have partners that are in the Philippines that are already there and they're ready to work. So that's the way we do it. But the best way of explaining how it all works is to take a closer look at a real project and some real people. So I'm going to do that in a minute. But as today is the second Sunday in Advent, I really wanted to tell you about Christian Aid in the light of the Christmas story, of the wonderful gift of the birth of Jesus, when hope was literally delivered on earth. God sent us his Son to close the gap between us, so we can now know God personally. That's what Jack was saying in talking about your art. That was really great. Just that there is no longer that gap. We are close. We can be close to God. And I believe that as God's church here in Weymouth, that's what we're called to do, to deliver hope, both in our community here and in the wider world, to share with people by giving, by acting, and by praying the hope that we have in Jesus. So I want to start by reading the story of Jesus' birth, which is Luke 2, 1-7. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to his own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She placed him in cloths and placed him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Okay, if we can have the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So I'm excited that the Johnsons are here. They're probably our most recent visitors to Kenya. So I'm sure they can share some good stories with you about Kenya as well. But so at Christmas, we celebrate the hopes of humanity focused on a tiny baby, born to a mother with nothing, with no stable, nothing there but the stable. It was a joyful night, and the night that a child was born who would change the course of history. But not every baby born in a stable survives. So let's have a look at the situation in Kenya. So I'm sure the Johnsons will testify that Kenya is a country of two halves. That's why I've put together the slide in this way. I wanted to show the two sides to Kenya. So Kenya has got shopping malls and cafes with Wi-Fi, and it's actually got a growing middle class. But as its economy has grown, so has the inequality between its people. Christian Aid works in the southwest part of Kenya with the Maasai tribes. And in these remote pastoralist communities, there's no electricity, no running water, no roads, and no transport. You can see on the left, people are moving around with their cattle. That's how they would survive. So they'd have some goats or some cattle, and they'd move from place to place looking for water so that they could sustain their lifestyle. Communities would be miles from hospitals, and in terms of thinking of Mary and how she had her baby, it would be similar. They would be relying on traditional medicine, and they would have no help in times of labour. So Kenyan mothers are 40 times more likely to die in childbirth than British mothers. And that is the average for Kenya. So that includes Nairobi, where facilities are good. So in these rural communities, the figures would be a lot worse. There's two main reasons for this. The first is distance to hospital. So for some people, they can try to walk, but it will just take too long to get there. To pay for transport, they would have to kill a goat, and that's a really big ask for a family. It would be one goat to get there, and then another goat to bring the mother and the child home. So for a lot of people, that's just not an option. And secondly, a lot of women don't know that it's possible to deliver in hospital or that it's safer. In Kenya, I just found this out yesterday actually, it was only last year, 2013, that it became free to have your baby in hospital. So up until then, people, if they did go to hospital, would have to pay to have their baby there. And it still is the case that the mother has to provide their own food, their own clothes, all the extras they still have to provide themselves. Okay, so let's look at some stories. Can we have the next slide, which should be Christine? Yeah. So this is Christine. I don't know if, can we turn down the front lights wand so we can see? So Christine is 25. Yeah, that's good. This is her outside her hut. You can probably just make out at the top there's a rack, which is where people traditionally keep their pots and pans and food to keep it away from animals. So that's a traditional way of storing things safely. So when Christian Aid visited Christine, she was 9 months pregnant. She was really excited about having her baby, but she was also really, really scared. She told our team that she had seen mothers and children die in childbirth, so she knew what was at stake. Christine had an extra problem. Her mother-in-law was the local traditional birth attendant. So these are women within the communities that are really well respected. They're often older women, and they have a lot of experience of being in the presence of birth. So they do have high status in the community, but they've got no formal training at all. But this mother-in-law had decided that Christine would follow tradition and she would have her baby in the hut. And that was that. Christine, within that community, it was really hard for her to make her own decision to go to the hospital. And she knew that if there were any complications during labour, it would be too late to get help. So our team asked Christine, have you got any sort of birth plan? And she said, yes, there are plans in place. A sheep has been chosen to be slaughtered. I've collected enough firewood to keep the hut warm, and I have enough kerosene, so fuel. I've also brought some more food to prepare for the day, and I've got enough Omo. I don't know if you saw that. It's the washing detergent for washing clothes. Yeah, washing powder. I will have my baby in my hut. So that's what she said. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, this is Susan. Okay, so Susan is 27, and Susan's family couldn't afford to pay for transport to the hospital. So when her time came to give birth, she started walking. It was about 30 kilometres to the hospital. And her baby couldn't wait. So she didn't make it. So it's good news. In Susan's case, Hope was delivered on a motorbike. So the lady at the back is Magdalene, and she is a community health worker. So Christian Aid are working in this area through a partner called the Transmara Rural Development Programme. It's actually part of the Anglican Church in Kenya. And they're running a project in this area which trains local women as community health workers. So Magdalene found Susan, and she arranged for a motorbike to take Susan to a nurse. So she had just had a baby, and then she was popped on the motorbike, and they went off to visit the nurse. But the nurse had, because of her training, she could see that there were complications with Susan's health. So she arranged for Susan to be transported to a hospital. And I'm really pleased to say that Susan and her daughter received life-saving care just in time. So part of Magdalene's work is to collect health data on families within a certain area. So she's got a caseload of 20 families, and she will walk through the bush from house to house, checking on pregnant women and the health of children in that area. And then she reports centrally to a nurse. So it's a small thing, but it's a slow start to bringing in some sort of health monitoring in that area. So try not to go for information overload, but actually I was just so excited about what our partner is doing there that I had to put lots of things on there. So yeah, as I said, they're part of the Kenyan church. They've been working amongst the Maasai people for 11 years. So they've been slowly building up trust, because I'm sure my colleagues in public health will know that in order to get behaviour change, you need to start from a point of trust where people will listen to what you're saying. TRDP, as they're called for short, this is how they describe themselves. So they say, we are a church-based organisation. The community identifies with us because we're not biased. We serve Christians and Muslims, and we're not biased about tribal affiliations. We use church and community structures for the mobilisation of the delivery of service. Our approach is all about community involvement. So that kind of describes Christian Aid as well in a nutshell. So you can see what they're doing. They're working to improve access to health facilities. So whether that's taking mobile clinics out into the bush or providing motorbikes to get people into bigger facilities. They've also set up mother-to-mother and father-to-father support groups, which I haven't got kids, but I know friends that have said having those sorts of groups are really vital to just be able to share stories and to reassure each other and swap advice as well. For this Christmas appeal, we've done a few podcasts and bits and pieces with Mumsnet. So I don't know if people are familiar with Mumsnet. And that's a forum just like that, where people can chat online and share stories. So this partner is providing that to these women who otherwise are really isolated and are perhaps getting pressure from older women or more senior members of their community. It's been really important to have the father-to-father groups as well, because in terms of changing people's behaviour about understanding the importance of getting to a clinic for delivery, working with the fathers has been really crucial. So that's great work that they're doing as well. They're also working with women to try and help them find a way to have their own income, so that if they want to pay for transport to deliver their babies in hospitals, they've got their own income. So that's projects like giving out seeds, teaching about horticulture, and just helping women to have more independence. I put as well the points on the bottom about what our partner TRDP are not doing. And this is almost as important as what we are doing, because part of the way that Christian Aid works is to reinforce the idea that governments need to provide for their own people. So we are really saying to the government of Kenya, you need to be providing salary for your nurses, you need to be building these facilities. So our partners will never go in and take over doing what the government should be doing, because we really need to push for the governments to not be corrupt and to use the money that they have got to support these rural areas. So that's just one story from one project in rural Kenya. I've got loads more stories, so if people are interested, please come and chat to me at the end. But I hope that that example just helped you to understand a bit more about Christian Aid. So this is us working together and being good news for the poor. We're looking at where the Spirit is already working and joining in. And this is what we're about. It's holistic care, not just healthcare. Understanding the wider cultural context. Helping people to bring change in their own lives. Bringing freedom and not dependence. And providing opportunities for everyone to join in by giving, acting and praying. Because all of us here are part of this story. Through our prayers, our donations and actions, we too are partners with our brothers and sisters in Kenya. So this is my challenge this morning. Could you deliver hope? Could you reach out and close the gap between yourself and those in need? We've all got different gifts, and we're all at different stages of life, so we can all respond in different ways. I want to thank you, all those who already give. This Christmas, the Deliver Hope appeal, you can see on that slide it's got the UK flag and UK aid underneath, and that is because we've managed, it's a small miracle, we were talking earlier about miracles, to get the UK government to give as well. So for this Deliver Hope appeal, for every £1 that we raise, the UK government will add £1. So that's a little bit of hope there, hopefully. I meet a lot of people whose circumstances have changed. So whether they've just been made redundant or they've just retired, and often they say to me, I'm not in a position to give financially, but I want to do something. And I always say the same thing. I've got a bit of a stock answer. I just say to them, can you pray? Because as a Christian organisation, we depend on prayer. You saw in the beginning how we're rooted in the churches, and we really depend on people to be praying for our partners, for our projects. And for instance, like with the Philippines, we launch emergency appeals, so we really value people's prayers. I've got lots of different resources with me today, but one of the most important, I think, is our prayer diary. So it's on the table at the back. So if anyone wants to pick one up, please do. I also meet a lot of young people. I've done some work with sixth formers and newly retired people who are, just want to do something, are keen to take action. So I say to them, can you do something? Can you campaign with us? So a lot of the root causes of poverty can actually be tackled by the governments of rich nations making changes to their policies. So if you're interested in getting involved in that sort of way, again, please come and see me. I wrote to my MP this week about something. I know that he didn't turn up to vote on a really important vote in Parliament on Friday, but I think we need to keep trying. We need to not give up. Okay, and then I want to finish by reading Mary's song to inspire us as we go forward in Advent. So I'm reading from Luke 1, chapter 46. And Mary said, my soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on, all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, even as he said to our fathers. My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour, says Mary. At the start of her pregnancy, she had a bit of an inkling of the weight before her, of the pain before her, and of the challenges before her. She sought out the support and advice of her cousin, and she praised God. She knew that God would be with her in this task ahead. So this Advent time, we are called to wait for the coming of Jesus. But we wait not on our own. We wait with our friends, our family and our church, sharing and receiving support and praising God. We wait, and we can all witness by giving, acting and praying, saying, this is what the world will be like when he comes. And so, with the help of the Holy Spirit, let us deliver hope in our community in Weymouth, in Kenya, and throughout the world. Amen. And then if the technology works, thank you for having me. And we're going to show just a really short video. It's about 2 minutes.
This Christmas, we have an opportunity to do something amazing, to be part of the incredible work of saving the lives of mothers and babies in Kenya and beyond. Losing babies has become a part of life for thousands of women in Kenya, women who struggle to access healthcare their babies need in order to be delivered safely. Christian Aid partners are running a project in southwest Kenya that will save thousands of lives now and for years to come. Through this project, community members, health professionals and local and national government are transforming maternal and child health. We're also empowering women to support themselves and to lobby for their needs. Not only can we be part of this incredible work, we can be the ones to help make it go further. The UK government is behind us and will give Christian Aid £1 for every pound that we raise this Christmas. This means that our efforts and the money raised will be doubled and make double the difference for those living in extreme poverty. The story of the birth of Christ is a story of salvation. In thanks for God's gift to the world, and as you keep Advent and celebrate Christmas this year, remember the stories of mothers and babies from Kenya. Do something amazing. Join us in delivering hope this Christmas. Thank you.